Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Donald Trump has promised to get rid of the Johnson Amendment. It prevents churches and nonprofit groups from supporting or opposing political candidates. And with the backing of the new president, Congress could repeal it as soon as next year.
Well, most Americans had never heard of the Johnson Amendment until this election year, but one congressman has been fighting against it for more than a decade. Abigail Robertson brings us the story.
Early in his campaign, Donald Trump sent a clear signal to evangelicals.
One of the early things, one of the absolute first things I'm going to do is work on totally knocking out the Johnson Amendment.
A controversial law used to restrict pastors' political speech from the pulpit. Senator Johnson introduced the amendment in 1954, an election year, when two Texas nonprofits supported his primary opponent. He proposed a law that denies tax-exempt status to any 501c3, including houses of worship, that influence or intervene in a political campaign.
It had nothing to do with churches, but this is what they call unintended consequences of law.
Congressman Walter Jones has moved to overturn it each year since 2001, after he noticed the IRS monitoring people of faith during the 2000 election.
It's kind of like Big Brother listening to what the minister or priest or rabbi might be saying in this situation.
He began to hear stories of churches being challenged by the amendment and afraid of losing their tax-exempt status.
All the complaints never actually come from within the church. It's from somebody outside the church.
Other critics like Jay Sekulow believe the amendment threatens freedom of speech.
The Johnson Amendment basically was a muzzle on the First Amendment rights of churches.
Sekulow argues the purpose of the IRS is to collect revenue for the general treasury, but this amendment turned it into the speech police. Two other House members are also trying to change the law. These efforts give advocates hope that the Trump administration will return free speech rights to churches and other nonprofits.
2017 is going to be the year it goes.
Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
It may seem like a minor thing, but it's actually mushroomed and it's become dominant now. That's this amendment, the Johnson Amendment, prohibiting nonprofits from advocating the election or defeat of any candidate. This is the reason why sermons have been subpoenaed in Georgia, and that has to do with an employment case. But all of his sermons have now been subpoenaed. And then you go back to Houston, and the sermons of pastors being subpoenaed because they were lobbying city council for certain things. And the justification put up was, well, it's unconstitutional. I heard that. It's unconstitutional for churches to participate in politics. And this it's just spread, and it's literally taken the voice of the church out of the public square. So we need to get rid of it. We're going to be following this. We're going to tell you how you can get involved, how you can support the repeal of the Johnson Amendment and bring back free speech to the pulpits of America. Well, Donald Trump is traveling to Louisiana today. It will be the latest stop on his thank you tour. His visit could help the Republicans keep a seat in the Senate. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Trump is rallying supporters in Louisiana ahead of the state's Senate runoff election. Voters head to the polls Saturday to choose between Republican John Kennedy and Democrat Foster Campbell. Republicans are hoping to win that race so they can hold 52 seats in the Senate next year. As Mark Martin reports, this latest stop comes after his thank you tour in Iowa.
President-elect Donald Trump made a stop in Des Moines, Iowa. He announced Iowa Governor Terry Branstad as his ambassador to China and also took on the issues of energy and conservation.
We will cancel the job-killing restrictions on the production of American energy. And that means lower energy prices for farmers, households, and small businesses in Iowa and, frankly, all over the United States. We will also pursue an agenda of conservation, protecting our beautiful natural resources for future Americans, your family, your children, and lots of other people.
Trump also thanked the various people who helped him win, including Christians, saying at one point, "Evangelicals, I love you." Earlier in the day, he stopped in Ohio, where he met with the victims of a Muslim Ohio State University student who wielded a knife.
We just saw the victims and the families, and we were really, these were really brave people, amazing people. The police and first responders were incredible. The job done in particular by one young gentleman was incredible. And I got to meet him, and he was very brave. The families have done so well to come through this so well.
And Trump continues to nominate people to his cabinet, picking fast food executive Andrew Puzder to be Secretary of Labor. Democrats plan to give some of the president-elect's picks a tough nomination battle, including the nominee for head of the EPA, Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt, a climate change skeptic who has fought the agency in the courts. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thanks, Mark. Well, the nation is remembering John Glenn today, the man described as an American hero, an all-American hero. The former astronaut and U.S. Senator died in his home state of Ohio Thursday at the age of 95. Glenn became the third U.S. astronaut in space in 1962 and the first American to orbit the Earth, circling it 3 times. At the time he was launched into space, fellow astronaut Scott Carpenter gave him this famous send-off.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Glenn then spent 24 years in the Senate representing the Buckeye State. He also ran for president in 1984. At the age of 77, he returned to space aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery. He was the last survivor of the original Mercury 7 astronauts. Glenn was also an ordained elder in the Presbyterian Church USA. He said to look out on creation in space and not believe in God was to him impossible. Well, the Dutch court has convicted lawmaker Geert Wilders of hate speech for speaking out against the dangers of Islam. Wilders says the trial was a politically motivated charade that endangered freedom of speech. Even before the hearing, he vowed not to let a conviction muzzle him from telling the truth. CBN News has interviewed Wilders before about the accusations.
I make mistakes every day. I'm just human, so I'm full of mistakes. But to speak the truth about Islam, as I see it, and as the reality is not a mistake. I wish many people did it. I understand why few people do it, because the price is very high. Besides the death threats that you get from average people, from Islamic descent, from organizations like Al-Qaeda or the Taliban, you also, a lot of people label you as a bigot or racist.
The judge says he will not impose a sentence on Wilders, saying conviction was punishment enough for a democratically elected lawmaker. 300,000 people in China alone are engaged in a cyber war against the United States. It's a quiet battle many are trying to fight. And this week, 120 leaders from more than 40 countries were here in Washington to discuss how to defeat radical Islamic terrorism and combat cyber and economic warfare. The National Security Forum was hosted by North Carolina Congressman Robert Pittenger. With ISIS now in more than 35 countries, he says it's critical for everyone to be on the same page, which he says starts with clearly identifying the enemy.
I believe that President-elect Trump understands our mission, and we need to unite our partners around the world. In like manner that President Reagan did with the Soviet Union, we had a moral clarity with President Reagan. The world knew where he stood. And with that, we were able to lead the world. And without firing a shot, the Soviet Union collapsed.
This was the 6th forum of its kind, and they happen twice a year. Well, a city in Japan is using special tags with barcodes to track old people with dementia who are getting lost. Japan's aging population is estimated to make up 40% of the nation by 2060. So a Japanese company developed a small fingernail sticker that carries an identity number to help find missing people. Agency France Press reports the trackers are part of a free service launched this month, the first in Japan. The adhesive QR code can be sealed onto a person's nails. And it's an implanted microchip or wearable ring that can be used to buy or sell or store business, financial, and biometric information. The device was developed by a multinational company called Etisalat, based in the United Arab Emirates. And according to Newsweek Middle East, the device also lets people share whatever information they choose, either personal or financial, with someone else who also has the ring, simply by tapping the 2 rings together. Gulf News reports the chip is approved by some European countries, but it won't be a mass-produced product. Gordon Shirley will see something like this device in the market at some point soon.
Well, I hope we don't see it on the market soon. And if it does come on the market, please be aware these things are hackable. And one of the dangers of RFID chips is they continuously broadcast the information. And you have to secure those chips in some kind of device that blocks the broadcast. So in the coming Internet of Things, it's more than just these implantable devices. Things are going to start coming with these chips that start talking about what they're doing or what you're doing. So whatever information's on there now becomes hackable. And do you really want, in today's world of cybersecurity, do you really want that kind of information being broadcast to the world? I don't. So I'm not going to wear the ring. I'm certainly not going to get the chip, and I kind of doubt Terry's going to either.
I think we stand as one on that.
We have agreement.
Yeah. Let's go with that.